This is Brady Henderson of the First Baptist Church in Gaston, South Carolina, located in the Midlands of the best state in the Union, and I am super excited today for episode 84 of the Menorah podcast. I'm here with our co-host, Alan Ott, and of course, those of you who listen in, the purpose of Menorah podcast is to share the light, speak the light, and send the light of Jesus Christ all across the airways of the internet. We have weekly episodes that release every Thursday, and today is Thursday, October the 2nd, and Alan, it is hard to believe that it is October.
It really is. Time moves so much faster when you get older.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm not as old as you, but I'll go ahead and take your word for it. How about that? So, super excited today. We've been doing a mini-series called The Pastor's Perspective, and we've been interviewing different pastors across the state. Today, we're not necessarily interviewing a pastor, but we are interviewing a soldier of the Lord, a fellow servant in the Lord, a pastor's son, and that is Dan Scott. And some of you might recognize the name. Dan Scott is the play-by-play voice for Furman Paladin football and men's basketball. He's also the voice of Greenville Drive, High A affiliate of the Boston Red Sox. Also has the Dan Scott Show that airs in the upstate. And in addition to that, he leads a ministry called Grand Slam Ministries. And they have an event coming up that I'm sure he'll tell you about. But Dan, super excited to have you on today.
Well, Brady, thanks for having me, first of all, and I'm glad you qualified there at the end because there's no possible way that you could know that the older you get, the faster time flies.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I tried to add that in there. I realized I was about to get in trouble.
And that just speaks to your credibility, my friend. I appreciate that. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Dan, I hope you are. I know you've had a full day already at Furman, interviewing some folks and doing some different things. I just think it's cool, Dan, how you and I have become friends over the last year. I've been listening to Dan for a long time before I knew Dan. I grew up in the upstate, and he joined the Greenville Drive in 2018, and I moved shortly thereafter, but always kept up with the radio with him and Tom, and they do a great job. Drive fell just short, and it stung a little bit with the Spartanburgers making it the playoffs, and at the time we're recording this, they have Game 2 tonight of the South Atlantic Championship Series. So that one kind of stung, didn't it, Dan?
Well, it does, but you do it long enough and understand how minor league baseball works. It's really a crapshoot getting in, especially at this level, because the roster that we started the season with looked nothing like the roster that we finished the season with in Greenville because of players getting promoted. And that's the way it happens at the high A level. So we send players on to Double A, and then we get players who replace them from the Low A affiliate in Salem. So getting into the playoffs, it's nice. We won a championship a couple of years ago, but I tell you what's even more fun is watching how quickly players can advance through the system. Brady, we had a left-handed pitcher named Peyton Tolley who started the year with us in Greenville at High A. And just a couple of weeks ago, he made his major league debut with the Red Sox.
Wow, 3 levels.
So you talk about John going from his 4th level in one season, High A, Double A, Triple A, and the big leagues. Now all the stories aren't like that, but it's a pretty cool gig to be sure.
Absolutely, and the way the way baseball's changed, guys throw harder. It's just incredible. Even at the High A level, how hard some of those guys are throwing.
Well, I have my own theories on that, and I've talked to a guy that a lot of people consider to be the best pitching coach in the history of the game, Leo Mazzoni. He was a Furman special assistant before the Paladins dropped baseball back in 2020. And, by what the radar gun shows, people are throwing harder than before, and there are certainly more of them throwing harder than before, but the technology has changed. And one of the reasons you've seen the velocity numbers tick up the way they have is because now they're measuring the ball from the fraction of a second it leaves the hand as opposed to when it crosses the plate.
Gotcha.
So using the new technology, just to give you for instance, Nolan Ryan using old technology back in his heyday was clocked at 100 miles an hour, 100 point something.
Mm-hmm.
They got video of him, were able to apply this new technology to it, and clocked his fastball at 108. So that just
Wow.
tells you the difference in clocking it out of the hand as opposed to when it crosses the plate.
Well, I'm not going to hold it against you, Dan. You're a Reds fan, and
Absolutely, lifelong.
most of our listeners, including me, are Braves fans. But hey, just want to talk a little bit about your ministry and let you share a little bit about that. You're coming here to the First Baptist Church in Gaston on Tuesday, November the 4th. And so by the time this episode airs, it's going to give our listeners a month to get to know you through this episode and all of our men to come out. We've restructured our men's ministry recently, and I think at our last men's meeting, we had over 70 men here. So that was great. That was exciting. Not only were they here, but we're doing ministry. We had a group of guys that have done 2-yard projects in the last few weeks and are working on doing some other things. But just tell us a little bit. I guess I'll go back a second because I know a little bit about your story and have been able to watch on YouTube and some things. But just give us a brief synopsis of your testimony and how you came to know Christ. It's a really great story.
Well, I as you mentioned in your open, I'm a preacher's son, and grew up in a Christian home. My dad was a pastor and a preacher for 54 years before he graduated on to glory with Jesus in June of 2024. So I grew up with that kind of background, grew up with that upbringing, and I tell people that it's the old joke about being a preacher's son that I had the drug problem. Every time the church doors were open, I was drug inside.
Yeah.
And I guess like a lot of preacher's sons, I don't know if rebelled would be the right word, but there are some circumstances. When I was somewhere in the 7 or 8, maybe 9-year-old neighborhood, I was sexually abused by a group of older boys who lived where my grandmother lived, and that helped really foster a lot of insecurity that I grew up with, and so long story short, I got saved, quote unquote, when I was 11. Got baptized in a creek in Toller, Kentucky, but all I did was get wet.
Gotcha.
That's all that really happened there. And then went on and went through high school and tried one semester of college. And being a preacher's kid, turned loose in the world for the first time. You can imagine how that turned out. But the bottom line is, to kind of fast forward the process, I was continually looking for something to fill what proved to be, as you know, a Jesus-shaped hole in my heart. And I tried alcohol. I tried pornography. I had a huge pornography addiction. I cheated on my wife on multiple occasions. I chased after money and notoriety. I chased after all those things. And the bottom line, as you know, none of it satisfies you. And in fact, it not only sent me further and further into the self-created abyss, but it also caused a lot of pain inside my own family with my wife and daughters. And don't have time to go into the full version of the testimony now, but it all came to a head in 2012, and I finally realized that after getting caught once before and saying I was sorry I got caught.
Yeah.
The second time it blew up, that's when I finally realized not only am I about to lose everything, every person in my life that I love, I'm also in a situation where if I died today, I'm going to hell. And so on June 10th of 2012, in my parents' living room, I gave my life to Christ, and as I tell people unequivocally, it's the best decision that I've ever made, and that's been just a little over 13 years ago.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Now, what was your dad's reaction when that happened back in 2012?
Well, it was interesting because being a preacher's son, I had I'd heard a lecture or two in my lifetime.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
And we were driving, it was about 9:30 at night here where I live, just outside of Clemson. And my wife had gone as far as she could go. And she said, "So what's it going to be?" And I said, "I need to go talk to my dad." So we hopped in the car and drove 5 hours to West Virginia.
Wow.
And all the way up there, I am thinking, how in the world am I going to tell my dad, my mom, how am I going to tell them everything that's been going on? What I didn't know, and this is an example of God laying the groundwork and paving the road ahead. Angela had been over the last few months calling my parents, telling them what was going on and asking for advice as to how to handle it.
Wow.
So they already knew.
Wow.
They already knew everything that was going on. So about 7:30 on that Sunday morning, I was sitting in the the living room on the couch, waiting on my dad to come upstairs. And as he always did, he came in. He had his coffee, and he sat down in his recliner. And I kind of braced myself for the lecture to come. And the only thing he said to me, Brady, was, "Son, what's going on?"
Hmm.
And when he said that, the dam burst, and I just let it all out. I
Wow.
told him everything that was going on, and I said, I can't go on anymore. And I get emotional when I think about it, especially with him being gone now. But that dear sweet man, who I have heard, as I said, a number of lectures from growing up, he explained the gospel to me like I had never heard it before.
Hmm.
And growing up in church, I had heard the gospel, hundreds, if not thousands of times. But there was no judgment, there was no condemnation, there was none of that. And I said I was there 7:30 waiting on him. By 8 o'clock that morning, I had given my life to Christ, and we had a nice little celebration there in the living room. And then the church he was preaching at, he had retired as a pastor for the first time. Then he was preaching at a church that Sunday, and I went and went forward at the end to make the public profession. And the cool thing about that, it was the same, not the same building. They had moved into a new building, but it's the same church that in 1957 my grandfather and grandmother got saved in, one night before she was going to go to town to file for a divorce.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
God has a way of orchestrating things in ways that we can never imagine sometimes.
Yeah.
But he has been far better to me than I deserve. And my whole frame of mind now is, just telling people the miracle he did in my life, and trying to share Jesus to as many people as possible with the platform that he's given me with the radio show and my social media and everything else.
Yeah. Dan, man, that's awesome. And big kudos to your wife, too, for calling your parents and getting advice and sticking with you.
Well,
That's awesome.
we come from a generation, even though at the time, I had in my mind that divorce was going to be the best way forward, and obviously that's not the case. But I we come from a generation that believes that you fight for your marriage,
Yeah.
and that's what we did. Now, I give her the credit because she was fighting for it long before I was. But the bottom line is that once we got on the same page, we went to a Christian counselor up here in Easley, wonderful lady that God sent us to, named Kim McManus.
Hmm.
And she helped us work through all of this stuff. And there's one thing that I'll never forget that she said early on, that both of us just kind of looked at each other and rolled our eyes. But she said, "There's going to come a day when you'll look back on this and laugh."
Hmm.
And she was right. Not that any of that stuff was funny, but we can look back now and laugh at some of the things that happened, some of the things that went on, some of the circumstances, and mostly laughing in praise at where God has brought us to.
Amen.
So that's the short version of it. Sometimes when I get the opportunity and I share the full version when I speak at churches, it takes me about 45 or 50 minutes to get through it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more detail in there, but that's you're not old enough to remember this, but your co-host is. That's the Cliff Notes version of it.
Yeah, I'm a young guy, 26, but about to celebrate 5 years down here in Gaston.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful time and a great ministry. But well, that's awesome, Dan. I think I've got you down for Father's Day next year, don't I?
I think you do.
I think I do.
As long as I don't mess up anything on November the 4th.
Oh, I don't think you will. I don't think you will. But so I'm super excited about that. And now you're at Utica Baptist Church over there with Ryan Goodrow, the pastor there. So were you at Utica when this was going on, or did you start going to church after you got saved?
No, I mean I was going to church, because my wife got saved back in 2003, and
Okay.
we were it was at a different church in 6 Mile, at 6 Mile Baptist, and we started going. I hadn't been going to church, neither one of us had really, but we started going because my now my 29-year-old daughter, who was I think 8 years old at the time, 8 or 9, started going to Awana, and she got saved through Awana.
Wow.
And so that prompted us to get back to start going to church. And I mostly was going to just to kind of haphazardly keep the peace around the house, and we shifted from 6 Mile Baptist to Utica Baptist in December of 2010. But I didn't get saved until June of 2012.
Yeah.
So I would go to Sunday morning service. I didn't go to Sunday school or anything like that, but I was going, and people probably, well, I won't say probably, because of my upbringing, and because of the way I approach things on the talk show I used to do on Clemson radio, a lot of people thought I was a Christian.
Hmm.
And I never said I was, but I also never corrected them if they thought that.
So you knew you weren't saved.
Oh yeah, I knew.
Okay.
I knew, and that's one of the things that I tell people about. The Bible always being right. Proverbs 27, is it the 27:17? Raise up a child in the way he
Yep.
should go. Or no, that's the iron sharpens iron verse. But
Yeah,
Proverbs tells us
22:6. Yeah, 22:6.
yes. Yeah, 22:6. Raise up a child in the way he should go, and when he gets old, he won't depart from it. And that's what I tell people. I said, all the time that I was doing all this stupid stuff, I knew that I was wrong, and I knew that I needed Jesus. But Satan is he's a worthy opponent, and you know this. The longer that you put off salvation, the harder your heart gets.
Yep.
And I use the Apostle Paul analogy that I had spiritual scales on my eyes, and thank God that I hadn't gone to that point where, like he said at one juncture in the Old Testament, Ephraim's joined to his idols, let him alone.
Yep.
Thankfully he didn't let me alone.
Amen. Amen. Kept pursuing, and God got a hold of your heart. Well, that's awesome. Tell us a little bit about Grand Slam Ministries. You've kind of alluded to it a little bit. Of course, sharing your testimony. I know you've been able to speak. I think you were at Mark Krieger's church a week or two ago at the time of filming this. Mark's a good friend and a good guy. Tell us about Grand Slam, a little bit about Sid Bream coming up, all of that in the other corner. I'm from the dark corner, but in the other corner of the upstate.
Grand Slam Ministries is a nonprofit that God led me into. Actually, the nonprofit started in early 2022, and that's a whole other story. I actually have a talk about finding God's purpose for your life and how I kicked that can down the road for close to 2 years before he finally made it so obvious to me that that's what he wanted me to do, that I couldn't ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
The radio show started on 2 stations on January the 8th of 2023. As of now, we are on 40 over-the-air stations in different places around the country. We are on 7 internet-only stations, two of which are international. One in Paisley, Scotland, which has a huge listening audience. One in Cape Town, South Africa.
Wow.
We have an internet affiliate based in Los Angeles that has a sizable following on the continent of Africa. And people listen to us. I've gotten a number of emails from there. So, God's done something with this that I never thought, never dreamed of. Because I happen, I'm a guy who sometimes gets blinders on and says, okay, we're going to do this and this is how we're going to do it. And God said, oh yeah, watch this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we're on every week. The show airs live on Saturdays and Sundays, and then I put the podcast archive up. And so every show that we have is archived. The website is danscottshow.org.
Okay.
Grandslamministries.org. It is a page at that website, so you can get there either way. The affiliates and archives page has all of our shows archived. It has the affiliates where you can listen to the show live on Saturday or Sunday, depending on where you are, if it airs in your market. I mean, it's my bio is at the website, ways you can contact me, and what we stand for and our core missions at Grand Slam Ministries. And once we get fully funded, our plans are not only to continue to grow the radio show, because it's becoming more and more apparent that this is a platform that God is blessing, and the guests that he has allowed us to have in 2.5 years are just mind-blowing. But we do have other core missions. Mentorship is a big thing of mine, because we've got to get young, high school, middle school age boys now into church, into the Bible, discipling them, making them understand their need for Christ. And then once they accept Christ, then teaching them what it means to be a godly husband and father and church leader and community leader, the things that God calls men to do.
Yep.
So that's one of our core missions. And another one of our core missions is helping children in our area. Angela and I found out 12, 13 years ago, by working with a school backpack program, that there are kids who get off the bus on Friday and go home and don't eat again until they come back to school on Monday.
Wow.
And that's in every community, everywhere. So, that's one of our goals as well. What we've been able to do on a very limited basis is, find some individual needs that have been met. The last 2 years, we've been able to, with some help from donors, to adopt families each Christmas that would not have a Christmas if they didn't get some help. So it's just doing that kind of stuff, trying to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And there's a lot more that we can be doing. There's a lot more that quite honestly, probably should be doing, either with or without funding. But we're just trying to be good stewards of what God has given us, and just looking forward to the day that, as I say, the faucet is dripping now.
Mm-hmm.
I want it wide open and gushing. But every one of those drips has met a financial need that we've had. We've never missed a payment for radio time. We've never missed a payment of anything. We've been able to do everything that we've needed to do, administratively and otherwise, and still find a way to help people at Christmas and do other things. So we've been blessed, and my prayer, Brady, and I've shared this with you, this, my prayer is that eventually God is going to open the door from a funding standpoint that will allow me to give up all of the other stuff and do the ministry full time for the rest of my life. I believe that's where he called me. I believe he's going to do that. Hasn't happened yet, but I'm just trying to remain faithful until it does.
Amen. And we will join you in praying about that. I already personally have, but I want to invite our listeners to join in that as well. So, yeah, man, your ministry is awesome. Just so excited for what God's doing. We're excited to have you come and speak. And, I know you're mentoring from a perspective of young boys in high school, but with me starting to do PA down here at the high school level and always wanting to do stuff, I ask you questions all the time. As our listeners have already heard, you have a perfect voice for radio and all of that. Maybe not perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, but a great voice. And
Well, you know,
really appreciate
the funny thing is, Brady, people also tell me I have a face for radio. So
that. I got told that as well recently. I was told that as well. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in broadcasting. Why do that? That's a very hard profession. People don't really realize it. Of course, you know, I've been called to pastor, and I plan on doing that until the Lord takes me home. You know, one of my personal goals, I guess, is to continue to be involved in local sports. Right now, that's at the high school level, and you know, we're doing PA right now, but I don't know if I've told you this yet, but we have been cleared to begin our radio network, which we're going to start in March. So many ways you can do that now with technology and stuff. And so we're going to start in March with high school baseball here in Swansea. And we're going to be on the air and broadcast those baseball games. Alan, who is my co host here, he is the man who makes it all happen. So I don't necessarily have to mess with all that. Even with the PA that we've done at the high school level, he handles the volume, and then I got a guy who handles lights, and then got a statistician, and then a spotter too. So it really helps to have a good team. How did you get into this profession?
well, you know, I mentioned early on that I had a one semester attempt at college.
Yeah.
And I was a preacher's kid turned loose in the world for the first time, so it didn't turn out well. And so I came back to my hometown of Williamson, West Virginia, and my uncle had been working in the northern part of West Virginia on some flood cleanup. And he was calling into my hometown station's daily little half hour forum show that they did, you know, talk show, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
to give reports on a daily basis. And he got friendly with the guy who hosted the show, and he told him I was coming back and I was interested in radio. And long story short, in December of 1985, so we're coming up on the 40th anniversary, I started at my hometown radio station at the age of 18. And I'll never forget it. I was probably 2 or 3 weeks into working there, and I was working 6 to midnight, playing music. We had a staff meeting at like 10 o'clock in the morning that I had to come back to. And I was hanging out in the studio with our midday guy. Still remember his name, Joe Miller. And he was asking me how things were going and how I liked it. And I told him, man, I'm having a ball. You know, I'm loving it. And he told me these words, Brady, I've never forgotten, because they've proven to be so true. He said, be careful. If this business gets in your blood, you'll never get it out.
Mm.
And boy, was he right. Because there have been some times over the years that I have tried to walk away from it, and I have been unable to. Every time I do, it's like the old the Godfather 3 thing. Every time I try to walk out, they pull me back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah.
So finally, I've just decided that this is the industry that God wants me in until he doesn't. It's been quite the journey. I did have an 11-year period where I was primarily a sports editor of 2 or 3 different newspapers.
Okay.
But radio has always been in my blood. And when I got to Clemson in 99 and got affiliated with WCCP in 99, it's been my life pretty much ever since.
So is that what brought you down to South Carolina? Was the opportunity to partner with Clemson, or?
No, what brought us to South Carolina was my wife being in retail management, and she was working with Target at the time.
Oh,
and
okay.
she had family here, and got the opportunity to come to the upstate and actually open the first Target in the upstate on Woodruff Road.
Wow.
And so she was making more money than I was at the time, and so that's what we ended up doing. And you know, I thought at the time, what in the world am I going to do in Clemson, South Carolina?
Little old Clemson.
Yeah, man, because the only thing that I knew about Clemson was, you know, I knew they had won a national championship in '81, but I think it was a 1989 Sports Illustrated article that had mentioned that when you get close to Clemson's campus, there are tiger paws painted on the road that guided you into campus.
Correct. There are.
And so we actually visited here a couple of years beforehand, I think even before we were married. And I said, I want to go see the Tiger Paws. So we got that out of the way. So we moved here the first week of 99, and we thought it was going to be just another, we were moving every 18 months, it seemed like, either for her job or mine.
Gotcha.
We've been in about 4 different places here in the upstate. Seneca. We started in Easley, moved to Seneca, 6 Mile, and now outside of 6 Mile, just outside of Clemson, and the house we've been in since 2005. But this has become our home. This is the place where we've planted the flag of our life, and that's how we ended up here. And as I said, I wondered, what in the world am I going to do in Clemson, South Carolina? But God knew long before I did. And every good thing that's happened to me professionally has been because of me stumbling into the radio station in Clemson all those years ago.
Well, that's awesome. And now I know how long you've been in South Carolina, because I was born in 99, Dan. So my age is how long you've been here. I'm a ninth generation South Carolinian. My people have been here since 1730s. And so not in Columbia, but primarily in the upstate area where I'm from. And God brought me down here. So when did you get involved with, I know you did a little bit of work with Tiger Athletics, Clemson up there. When did you get involved, and how did you get involved with them?
I took over as the sports editor of the Daily Journal in Seneca and Clemson. And it was a 3-day-a-week paper, and they were transitioning it to 5 days.
Okay.
To transitioning it from a 3-day paper to a daily paper. And, I had been a sports editor, as I said, of multiple papers for the previous decade. So I actually got hired to work as a news writer because they had a sports editor. But shortly after I got hired there, and I never forget it, my first day of work was May 3rd of 99, and that was my wife's birthday. But shortly after I got hired there, the sports editor, who I believe his name was Kevin, left to take another job. So I went to our publisher and said, look, this is what I've been doing, for the last decade. And he said, you're hired.
Yeah.
So I was a sports editor there from early 99 or a middle of 99 until I left the newspaper in June of 2001, because by that time I was doing and had been doing the daily sports talk show on WCCP starting in February of 2001. And I started to figure out that my hobby, radio, could actually pay me more money than I was making at the newspaper. And so I left the paper full time, went and just doing the radio, but continued to write for about the next 3 or 4 years, covering Clemson as a writer for TigerNet, and then also for a couple of other newspapers in different places around the state. So I covered Clemson as a writer and a broadcaster from 99 through the end of the 2011 baseball season.
Gotcha.
And that regional, when they got beat twice by Connecticut, the Connecticut team that had George Springer on it.
Yep.
That was my last Clemson broadcast, because shortly after that, the Furman job, I'd known it was open. I had put my name in the hat, and I got the Furman gig. So I started at Furman with the football season in the fall of 2011. And so I'm in my 15th year at Furman now.
That's awesome. So I'm sure you enjoy covering Furman football. I don't know if you remember. I'm not sure. Yeah, you probably still would have been there. This would have been when you would have started. But great High School quarterback Reese Hannon played at Furman. Don't know if you remember that name or not.
Oh, yeah, I remember Reese, because I believe his first game as a true freshman, he had to come in because of an injury to our quarterback, and he was part of a wild triple overtime game that we ultimately lost at home to Coastal Carolina. That was 2012, and then in 2013, he led Furman to a Southern Conference championship and a first-round playoff win at South Carolina State before they dropped the second-round game at North Dakota State.
Wow. You got a great memory with that.
Yeah,
Uh,
and then but I asked my wife what she told me to get at the store yesterday, and that I can't remember. So
Yep, yep. I can relate to that. I can remember sports and sermons a lot easier than some other things. But
hmm
well, that's awesome, man. And of course, your work with the Greenville Drive. I'm assuming you're planning on going back next year, which will be your eighth or ninth season.
it'll be my eighth year,
Eighth year.
if the Lord allows. Tom and I have a really good time with that. We're really an anomaly because just about everybody else they're young guys who are trying to get up the ladder
To the big
as far as
leagues.
broadcasting goes, and
Yeah.
Tom and I have kind of resigned our fate that where we are, and we're with our families and everything else. So we are we're just content because we love baseball to be here in Greenville and do these games. And so it's a funny dynamic in a lot of ways, but we have a great time doing it. We're fortunate that Eric Jarinko, the general manager, actually likes us, so he keeps bringing us back for another year. And yeah, I mean, unless the good Lord has any different plans, and if we're still alive, we plan to be there for season number 8 when it opens in April.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, you guys do a great job. I've been able to be up there and visit you guys in the booth, and you guys definitely have to do a lot of work running the producing side of it at the same time, simultaneously, while calling a game. It's quite the challenge, but you guys are a good team and a lot of fun to listen to. I listen any chance I get. My Braves were pretty awful this year. Are pretty awful, so haven't kept up with them as much as I have in previous years. Super excited. Furman is 2-0. Is that right?
No, 2-1.
2-1.
We dropped we dropped an overtime decision to a surprisingly good Presbyterian college team that beat Mercer the week before, and then on the road, and then came into our place and beat us on a. We had scored first in overtime to go up 38-31, and they scored a touchdown and decided to go for 2 and either win it or lose it there. And
Wow.
they had a tight end make a diving catch, just a great play, and they beat us 39-38. But we bounced back with a nice road win at Campbell last week. So we're off this week. Considering when this is going to air.
Yeah.
So 3 weeks into the season, we are 2-1, and going into a bye week on September 20th and September 27th, we open SoCon play at Sanford. So by the time this airs, hopefully we'll be 1-0 in SoCon play.
Well, good deal. You think Furman's got a good shot this year in the SoCon Conference?
It's really interesting, Brady, because coming off the year we had last year with so many injuries and so many things that went wrong, you just never know, quite honestly. You just never know. But we've gotten almost all those injured players back. We had like 9 players miss the entire year last year, guys who were going to be starters.
Wow.
So we've gotten the majority of them back. They're still trying to figure some things out. It's a young team. I think when you take combine the sophomores, redshirt freshmen, and 2 true freshmen on our roster, that's like 75 players.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
so it's a young team by and large. So it has to learn how to win some games. And the only way you can learn to win them is to be involved in close games. Well, we won a close game at home to open the season. We lost a close game the next week, but then we won a close game by making a big defensive play down the stretch at Campbell in week 3. Looking at the rest of the conference, I think the SoCon is wide open. I think it's going to be one of those years, and this is not hyperbole or me dodging the question by any stretch of the imagination, but I honestly think that Furman is capable of winning all 8 conference games, and they're capable of losing to everybody on their schedule.
Gotcha.
I think that if we can go to Sanford and get off to a good start, I think we're going to end up having a year that's going to surprise some people. We were picked 6th in the preseason, but I think we're going to surprise some people.
Well, that's awesome. So do you guys go on the road?
Oh yeah, wherever they are.
That's
Same
awesome.
thing with basketball.
Oh, wow. You get to go on the road to basketball. That's cool. Bob Ritchie's Furman Paladin team.
Hmm.
So, did you get to call the tournament game a few years ago?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's one call that I had that actually went viral when Furman beat Virginia on the turnover in the J.P. Pegues
Yep.
three. It's a funny story about that because the year before we thought we were going to go to the tournament for the first time in 40 years, and had scored in overtime with like 4 seconds to go to take a lead on Chattanooga in the SoCon championship game, and the kid from Chattanooga hit a 35-foot prayer on the run, a three-pointer to beat us.
Yep.
And
I remember that.
so so and so selfishly I'm thinking, all right, if we win that game, my rate, because ESPN, CBS, they all, the radio calls always get a little national play for conference champions, and I missed my chance, right, to get
Yeah.
some national play. So fast forward to the next year, and we have that moment. We win the SoCon championship and got a little bit of national play there, but JP Pegues hits that shot March 16th of 2023. Never forget it. And Furman stunned Virginia. First time they've been to the tournament in 41 years.
Mm-hmm.
And my call of that for Furman Radio went viral. CBS actually opened its NCAA tournament coverage the next 2 days with my call of that.
Wow.
I did 7 radio interviews the next day. 2 of them were national radio shows. I probably got 250, 300 text messages from people, and I'm telling Tom at some junction, I said, I haven't scored a point. I didn't coach a minute. Why are people calling me and texting me all this stuff? But it was a pretty subliminal moment. But when I go and speak places, and I'll probably do this when I come down there November 4th, if the technology allows, sometimes I open my talk by playing that video clip.
Yeah.
And the reason I do it is because God used it as one of those little teaching moments for me, because you can't help but start to feel pretty good about yourself, and your ego maybe get a little inflated when something like that happens. And especially, like I said, all the radio interviews, the national publicity that I got the next day. And then 48 hours later, Brady, nobody knew who I was,
Mm-hmm. Because they
because the
lost. Yeah.
tournament moved on. The next big moment happened, and so God used that as a way to remind me that He's the one who sets up and He's the one who takes down.
Yep. Amen.
And so I try to use everything I can as a learning moment. Some moments are harder to learn than others, but so if the technology allows, you might hear that call on November the 4th.
Well, the technology definitely allows. We'll definitely be able to do that. We'll look forward to hearing that. Yeah, that Chattanooga game, I remember watching that one. And then 3 days or 4 days later, South Carolina hired Lamont Paris, who was the then coach at Chattanooga.
Right, and had Furman won that game, it very likely would have been Bob Ritchie.
I'll be honest with you. I would have preferred Bob Ritchie. It's been a tough go, Carolina athletics, and I'm a big Carolina fan. I know you've supported the Tigers, so we'll leave all that out anyway. Well, Dan, thank you so much.
You know what, Brady? At the heart of things, I'm always going to be a Mountaineer from the state of West Virginia.
There you go.
And with a little partiality to Marshall as well, because that's where I spent my one semester. But Furman signs my paycheck.
Yep.
So
yep.
Go Dens.
Yeah, go Dens. Yeah, cool little story. My granddad passed away in 2001. Was killed by a drunk driver. He was a historian, also was a banker as well. Worked in the banking industry, but he was a graduate of Furman and very dedicated. Was at all the home games and all of that. I do have some roots there at Furman. Dan, as the time we're recording this, we've still got a lot of home football games. I know you do as well. Obviously, doing PA, we do travel on the road, but we don't call games on the road yet because we're doing PA. But you have any advice for us?
Don't take yourself too seriously. And when people start, which invariably they will, because no matter how good you do, somebody ain't going to be happy with you.
Yeah.
Don't let that drag you down. The best thing that you can do is just do the best job you can. And if you've got a good crew that you work with, make sure that you've got good camaraderie, good chemistry between you. Try absolutely to do the best job that you can. Be prepared, and don't be caught unaware of something. Don't be unprepared when you go into a broadcast. But have fun. Don't take yourself too seriously. And at the end of the day, and I've been doing this for a long time, and there are a lot of frustrations in any job, whether it's broadcasting games or pastoring a church, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, I remind myself I'm getting paid to watch a ball game.
Yep.
And in the grand scheme of things, that ain't bad. Tom Van Hoy told me years ago, and I always make sure I give him credit because it's the first time I'd ever heard it. But we are very lucky. He said that if life is a department store, we work in the toy department. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
I'll have to quote him on that. That's pretty good. Oh man, that's cool. Yeah, we're doing this as volunteer, but man, I've been loving it. Called my very first game this past Friday. I got to call a really close game. We won 28-27. We won on a 2-point conversion and been able to do some interviews with the coach and some stuff like that. It's just been really cool for our community. Almost or over 2,000 people were at the game this past Friday, and for our small community, that was a big deal. I mean, people were super excited, and, we got a new light system, so that was, flickering lights and things like that, and everybody was really excited. I just had a ball. I had a ball.
High school football is huge in this state, as we know.
It is. So hopefully I can have a lot of fun with that, get some experience, and who knows what God might do in the future. Well, Dan, you got anything else before we let you out of here?
I would just like to, if I can,
sure.
Remind people about October the 13th.
Yes, please do.
It's the first ever fundraising dinner that we are attempting to pull off with former Braves Sid Bream as the guest speaker, and Braves fans remember him, from the slide that got them into the 1992 World Series. Sid is a chaplain now. He and his wife have a ministry together. He's been a guest on my radio show. He's a great man of God. He's a wonderful human being. And so he's going to be the keynote speaker. I'm going to have a couple of other former Major League players, it looks like, who are going to be in attendance as well. And we just, we need your prayers for it. But it's on a Monday night, so there's no college football conflict. That excuse goes out the window.
Yep.
So we would love to have you come and join us. I know it's a couple of hours drive, but I think it'll be worth it. We've got some great silent auction items. I just found out today that among the silent auction items are things like an autographed Willie Mays baseball, who just passed away not too long ago.
Yeah.
And let me see if I can pull up some of these other things very quickly. Signed baseballs from Willie Mays, Tom Glavine, Spencer Strider, Steve Avery, Nolan Ryan, a Chipper Jones signed bat, William Perry, the refrigerator, signed mini helmet, and
wow.
baseball jerseys signed by Pete Rose and Wade Boggs.
Ooh.
That's what we have at the moment.
Wow, Pete Rose, wow.
Yeah, so we're just praying that God is going to open the door for people to come and have a good time and feel the call to partner with us and what we're doing from a mission standpoint. And we're going to see how it goes. We're going to have a low country boil for the dinner and just have a fantastic night. So we've got a couple of different types of tickets that are available. One just for the evening, which starts at 6:00. There's also a meet and greet ticket available, which will get you in at 5:00 to spend about 45 minutes with Sid and the other players who will be there ahead of time. We have individual tickets. We have tables of 8 available. And if people want more information about it, on my website, danscottshow.org, there are a couple of stories on the front page. If you just scroll down a little, you'll see them. The ticket information is there. Or we have a ministry line. You can call or text me at 864 864-788-9596. 864-788-9596. And I can answer any questions you have, or I can send you the link to buy tickets. And we would love to have you come and join us.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're going to start promoting that, and I'm going to share that at our next men's meeting and see if anybody wants to make the trip and go up there and support. So, Dan, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I took more of your time than I anticipated, but thank you for being so gracious to come on.
And Brady, it's fine. And I'll just, I would say, Alan, it was great to talk to you too, but Brady didn't let you talk any. So,
Yeah, I'm pretty used to that.
That's growing up in a preacher's household. Sometimes that is the price you pay for working with a preacher and a broadcaster. So you got a double whammy.
Yeah, well, I've been in broadcasting for my whole life as well. I'm usually on the engineering end of it. So I was involved in the inaugural year of the SEC coverage here at USC.
Nice.
Yeah, he also worked with ETV for a while, has done a lot of different things. So we're pretty blessed. That's how we're probably going to be able to cover high school sports via radio is because of Alan. I just have to talk.
Pressure, Alan.
Yeah. He's the sound engineer and does all that. And he does all our media at church, too. He's on staff with us, everything we do here. So, well, Brother Dan, thanks so much for coming on. And, of course, you're going to be here on November 4th and then Father's Day next year. So we're going to go ahead and look forward to all of that. Hopefully I will be seeing you in between those times, whether that's at a Furman basketball game or whether that's a quick little chat on the phone. But I appreciate you, Dan.
Brady, you know that I'll do anything I can to help you out, my friend. Being a preacher's son, I've got a soft spot for those of you who are doing the Lord's work and what he's called you into. And I know that it's not easy, but if you're faithful to his calling, the rewards are going to be great. So you just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate it, Dan. And you say hey to Pastor Ryan when you get a chance.
Will do.
All right. This has been episode 84 of the Menorah podcast. We had broadcaster Dan Scott on the show. And thank you guys for tuning in. And we will see you next week for episode 85.
Bye, guys.